All right. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And welcome to the IAU Women in Astronomy event on enterprising women in astronomy. And happy International Women's Day to everyone. It's great to see so many participants. We have got 90 participants today and from all over the world participating for this event. So it's really great. And thank you very much for showing your interest in this event. So we are equally very much thankful to our invited esteemed guests for their contribution and for their presentation for today's events. And I'm sure people want to hear them and people want to learn from their career experiences and career paths that they have taken. So for us, the IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group, the International Women's Day holds importance because we want to create awareness of the prevailing gender imbalance situation that is existing in astronomy. We also want to celebrate the achievement of enterprising women, so like the speakers of today, for example, highlight the practices at the workplace and the efforts that are being carried out from institutions to support women career worldwide, and also the situation, the society practices, the family situation, the social conditions that impact the career of women researchers. So we want to discuss about all this, and this is why we are organizing this event. And going as per today's theme, so enterprising women in astronomy, why do we need enterprising women in astronomy and in STEM in general? It's because the way the societies are advancing globally today, the future of the work is largely linked with STEM fields. So STEM expertise is going to be very important in the future. And women continue to remain significantly underrepresented in STEM, and even in astronomy, of course. And so they tend, even if they tend to pursue their studies in STEM fields, even if there are many students at graduate level, women students in STEM fields, somehow we don't see so many of them in permanent positions. So this is why we need enterprising women in STEM. And how can they help us? They can help us to improve the stability of the workplace, a healthy and a safe working environment. That is what we want, which is not the case. I will be showing you some statistics of whatever survey we have been doing. They will help not only to improve the stability in their country, but even at the global level, especially in the field of astronomy. They also inspire other women to take up new projects and new approaches to progress in career. They also help to create jobs for others and opportunities for other women. And they help in the end to reduce the gender gap that we can see today in STEM and in astronomy and in all the workplaces. So this is the reason why today we have this theme, enterprising women in astronomy. So we are very happy to have esteemed speakers from all over the world today. And these speakers are really role models, and they are coming from different continents to share their experiences and their invaluable career experiences, as well as their views on women career in astronomy on this International Women's Day. So thank you very much, everyone, for your participation, and to the speakers for accepting to give this invited talk. So before I go further with the first speaker, I'll quickly give you a short overview of the situation of women in astronomy, and then we will listen to our first speaker. So let me just share the screen. Yeah, there we are. So we're in full screen mode. Yeah, so there we are. So that's the plan for today. We have invited inspiring lady astronomers from all over the world, and who have made significant contribution in research, have taken actively new initiatives to support women career and girls career in astronomy, and created opportunities for people. So we are going to hear them. They are today our role models. And to go ahead, I'll just give you a brief overview of IAU union members and Women in Astronomy Working Group. So I am Mamta, Pommier, the chair of IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group, and And together with our working group members, we have an excellent team of very motivated organizing working group members. We are organizing today's event. So you can see already our co-chair, Priya Hassan, who is here, who is helping us to organize. We also have Joan today with us. And usually we always have the support of our organizing committee members. So I did my PhD on an Indo-French project in 2007, partly from India, partly from France. I did my habilitation in 2019 from Paris Observatory, and I'm a member of the EU Commission expert in radio astronomy team. And for the moment, I'm working at the CNRS laboratory of, at the University of Montpellier. And I'm a French national and a low frequency radio astronomer working on fixed term contracts on SK and Pathfinder projects in France since last more than 14 years. So it is to give you an information about the qualifications the women can hold and the kind of jobs that they have to keep on taking up in order to pursue their career. So, to start with, what is International Women's Day? So in 1945, the UN nations became the first international agreement who kind of understood the importance of maintaining the equality between women and men at workplace. And they celebrated the first official International Women's Day on 8th of March and in 1975. And today, the United Nations Women Organization on this International Women's Day is celebrating the gender equality for a sustainable tomorrow. And the event is actually going to talk about gender imbalance, social equity, and climate changes. And they recognize that without gender equality today, a sustainable future and an equal future will remain out of reach in every domain. So this is their focus for this year. And not only United Nations, but even the EU Commission, the European Commission, is celebrating International Women's Day today. And their focus is on world emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic impact and how it has impacted our lives, the lives of especially women, working women with the work and family balance that they have to maintain and juggle with. So the European Commission, a recent meeting, which was held on 3rd of March, it highlighted an ambitious future for European women after COVID-19. And the focus of this meeting was on maintaining gender equality in teleworking and on mental load, which it puts on women especially, and the unpaid career work, which they have been continuing doing after the pandemic. So while it is important for the UN nations, for the European Commission, for us also it holds equally important to talk about the situation of women in astronomy on the International Women's Day. And our idea is to create awareness about the current situations, highlight the practices, and celebrate the achievements of enterprising women. So the United Women statistics, the UN Women statistics on COVID-19 impact on social condition of women was published very recently. And in their statistics, they show that after the COVID-19 impact, 1 in 2 women reports to have experienced violence at her workplace. And 3 out of 5 women think that sexual harassment can happen to them at public place. And this kind of violence and harassment is just becoming more and more. Women are feeling not only unsafe at workplace, but also at homes. So this is also not really very promising. And that is a kind of impact of COVID-19 pandemic, which has happened. 7 out of 10 women think domestic violence has increased, even at home. And violence against women during COVID-19 is linked to many other negative outcomes because women then start to feel, of course, stressed mentally and emotionally. And because of this kind of growing violence situation and instability at work. So of course, having some professional life, some work, some financial security is very important for women. And it is important that we know how to continue to sustain our careers under such conditions. The situation, this survey was done only in some southern countries, but The situation is not different. In many countries, this problem has come up. Even in France and UK, the domestic violence has increased after the pandemic. Even the EU Commission has published their report on gender equality and COVID-19 impact on women's career. And you can find the statistics on this link in the presentation. And what do we see from this particular statistics? That the COVID-19 has impacted mostly the career of women at work. So women are being offered low-paid jobs, and so they are the ones who have been also been removed from the jobs due to the COVID-19 crisis. The working hours of women have been reduced compared to that of men, and younger women have been mostly impacted. They had to lose their jobs in front of senior men. And it has created a lot of emotional stress on the women who are actually having jobs, because they are not only low paid, they are also obliged to kind of support a lot of emotional stress. And of course, the gender pay gap is always there. In STEM, it has not gone down, and women are always over-representing minimum wage earners when it comes to EU member states. So women are always low paid as compared to men in EU member states. So many women are not managing to advance in their careers due to the problem of time management, working from home, doing homeschooling also, and managing their own careers. And of course, getting cut off with their jobs or getting low-paid jobs is putting them in a difficult financial situation. So work-life balance and teleworking has also put a lot of pressure on women's careers. 26% women said in the survey that they were kind of stopped from going to work. So family was preventing them from going to work because they have to stay at home and take care of the children who were having homeschooling going on. 29% had found it very hard to concentrate at their work by taking care of all the family-related help that they offer. And 31% were worried about their work even while they were not working, because they had a lot of pending work to finish. So this is why EU Commission has put this gender equality issue in their focus for their meeting in order to promote gender equality in their new policies and in order to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. So what are the ways under such kind of conditions to sustain the career and to achieve gender equality is always a question that we have to ask. Right. So when it comes to the statistics of IAU members and Women in Astronomy Working Group, we have been also looking at it. And we have also published our statistical results in this Ensemble December magazine. So what you can see is in the IAU, we have got around 12,000, more than 12,000 members from all over the world, from many countries. And among these members, there are 78.7% male and 21.2% female, with only 0.1% who are either from other genders or they have not mentioned their genders in their registration. So among these total members, 12,000 members, we have only 1.6% members who are a part of Women in Astronomy Working Group. So that's really small number compared to all the members of the IAU. And if we look at the male and the female members, we can see that among the female members, only 6.5% are part of Women in Astronomy Working Group, whereas only 0.2% are male members are part of Women in Astronomy Working Group. So that's again very small, whereas these issues, I think every woman is concerned about it at their workplaces. So I would encourage all the women members who are attending today, and if you're an IAU member, please be a part of Women in Astronomy Working Group. These are the members from where, these are on x-axis, you will find number of members, on y-axis, you will find the countries, and these are the members who are participating in Women in Astronomy Working Group, with more than 50% members from US, Italy, France, India, Netherlands, and Germany, and the rest of the world is in the remaining 50%. So again, we have to encourage more and more women from all these countries and men to participate in these activities. So the overall information is that there are only 21% of women researchers from all over the world who are a part of IAU. And if we go into country-wise distribution, continent-wise actually, so this is Europe, this is America, Asia, Africa, Oceania, and Middle East. And what you can see is the proportion of women from different countries of Europe who are a part of IAU. In all the working groups, not only in Women in Astronomy. And so you can see that in European countries, more women are participating in IAU activities, but there are also many countries. For example, you can see here, Denmark, Netherlands, Germany, UK, Swiss, they are having less than 21% women who are participating in IAU activities. So this number is less for these countries. When we come to America also, we can see there's a good participation from Venezuela and Argentina, but there are many other countries in the US where the percentage of participation of women is less than 21%. When it comes to Asia, Africa, the number keeps on going down. So gender imbalance is seen in all the continents. It points towards a need for significant efforts to increase the participation of women researchers within the IAU, especially in decision-making, funding, and steering committee roles in order to secure the place of women in research and also in academia, and to show that there are some role models and it's not just job for men, that women can also do such jobs. So for that, we need some more efforts, right? We also conducted a survey on what is holding back women to be a part of astronomy, to do STEM, to be a part of STEM fields, and to have jobs in STEM. And there were 750 members who participated in our survey, and the results are published in our Ensemble magazine. You'll find it. And these, you can see here, this is a career-wise pie chart with the career-wise distribution of female. These are all female members who participated. These are male members. These are other members, other genders. And starting from permanent senior position to non-permanent positions, and then you have male members also permanent to non-permanent. So 750 members participated from 50 different countries in this particular survey. And what we could see that 31% of members from this survey are actually women in non-permanent positions. So they are either holding junior researcher, postdoc, or PhD position. And when they hold a postdoc position or a non-permanent position, it is highly possible that they are not young. They are more than 35 years, 38 years, but they are still kept in these positions. 17% female are having permanent senior position, and 12% junior permanent researcher position, women. And you can see when you compare it with men, so not so many men participate, but still we had a significant proportion of men who participated in this survey. And we found that at non-permanent position, at junior researcher, men are only 10%, whereas women were 31%. So of course, the men are not being so much kept in this position, or they leave the jobs earlier because they want a stable career as soon as possible, and they don't keep on waiting. They also have society pressure on them to take up permanent jobs, whereas there are other biases also which holds women mostly in non-permanent positions. And so there are less non-permanent junior and senior men researchers in this survey, whereas there are still a large proportion of non-permanent junior and senior women researchers in this survey. So non-permanent positions are mostly being held by women, and that's also a question. Why is this imbalance? So why is this imbalance? So we also had asked the question whether they have children. So of course, this maternity break is one of the reasons what keeps them, holds them back in their career. And there are not enough support provided by the institutions or help provided by the institutions to sustain their careers and to bring them back to their career once they have this maternity break. And men, they are not impacted so much by the maternity break. So they have just 1 year of, or less than 1 year of maternity break. And that's also the situation for women with no child-minding responsibilities or with no children. Whereas women who take care of the children may end up having career breaks from 14 years to 18 years or even more, depending upon the needs that they have at their home. So what are the other factors besides children and family responsibility? There are many other factors which are impacted. So the participants have to given us all these information that factors affecting female researchers' career with no child-minding responsibility is they face a lot of competition. They also face a significant amount of harassment, physical and mental, and bias for performance and productivity. And they have limited choice and reduced options that are offered to them. When it comes to men, there are also factors that are affecting their career. And these are basically, and they may have children or they may not have children, but the factors that affect their career is mostly competition, social pressure, increased responsibility at work, and also harassment may happen, physical and mental, but it's less compared to the other three prominent factors. When it comes to women researchers with child-minding responsibilities and family responsibilities, as we can see here, so they have limited choice and flexibility because they have to be with their family, so they cannot really take up careers in other countries so easily. They have to move with their family, so their choices are limited. Their expenses are high, but the contracts that they get to work are always unpaid or low paid, and so they don't have enough financial independence, and they always have difficulties to meet their ends. They also don't get enough local support from their institutions, and there is always a pressure maintained on them for their performance, to do a good performance or to quit. But somehow people don't really care about the conditions or the contracts that are being offered to them, whether they are working full-time or half-time. Nobody cares, but their performance is always compared to a full-time researcher's performance. They also face equally mental and physical harassment, and there is an increased risk of leaving their career. And they also face a lot of bias and stereotypes at workplace. Right, so these are factors, and they're all prominent when it comes to women with children. And if there are also women with colored skin, then among all these factors, there is also the discrimination due to their origin that they face. So these were the response that we got from our participants. What are the ways under such conditions to sustain the career and achieve gender equality at workplace is a question that is to be answered. So when we look into all those factors, we also have a statistical data from our survey, and these were the factors. So while child and family responsibility are the main factors that affect women's career, there is also social stereotype, which is quite prominent, discrimination, lack of support, few job opportunities, and unfair evaluation of work, and social and mental harassment, but also lack of family support, and also lack of visibility or suppression or lack of acknowledgement of their work. So these are the prominent factors that affect women's career in research. And these responses were given to us by men researchers with permanent positions and women researchers with permanent positions. And we are going to also publish these results with the inputs from the non-permanent researchers also. So that part is still under progress. But what is clear from this figure is that organizations, institutions, and funding agencies, they need new policies to support women's career with children responsibilities. There should be equal parental leave, flexibility at work, and funding especially for women with children who want to come back after maternity leave. There should be better policies at the organizations to ensure a healthy and safe working environment because there's a lot of harassment and discrimination and suppression that is happening. And so perhaps there is a need for women's cell and equality, diversity, and inclusion cell at workplace. It should be made mandatory in order to have a better working environment. And hiring and funding agencies also should have to pay an attention on the contracts that are being offered to men and women when they work, and the one who work with child responsibility. If they're working part-time, then their productivity should be scaled to 100% contract while evaluating the contracts and the performance, and not just blindly comparing a person who is having a 50% contract, his performance, with the one who is having a 100% contract, for example. So women's career should be supported in STEM, especially role models at every career stage, to secure the role and future of women and girls in higher academics in the future. And all this is happening because due to lack of awareness, support, positions, funding, and women researchers are often forced and advised to leave academia, leading to a gender gap in STEM fields and unhealthy working environment. So as IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group, we are trying to address these issues, create awareness. You can see this is our website, this is the link, this is our website, and these are our members. And we really have a good team of members. They are really very supportive, very helpful, and it has increased. At least we have added almost 20 new members in the last 4 or 5 months. So that means people are interested in the activities that we are doing. So we have national representatives and we have organizing committee members, and everyone is doing an excellent contribution from their side with whatever they can. So it's a great team, and it's also a very diverse and an inclusive working group. So that's also nice, because then we get information from all over the world, and you can see the global participation is here. So we are creating awareness. We are conducting lots of seminar series, invited interviews series from very famous scientists who can share great experience and give advice to us to do the best we can in current circumstances. And we are also publishing newsletters and an ensemble magazine, which happens once every 4 months, where we kind of publish all the informations, the achievements, the fundings, the survey results, everything from all the women participants, all men participants, and who are interested in our working group activities. So, but we also sustain the careers by celebrating the achievements, as I said, by supporting the activities, promoting women and girls in astronomy, and working in collaboration with global IAU offices and with other working groups. And we are looking for funds, so we always keep trying to get funds, which is always a hard and challenging job to do, but we keep our hopes, and we support career of women in research. Right, so here you can see also we are conducting training programs. So that was for researchers, but we are also going to university levels, to early career researchers, and we are also going up to school levels. So here you can see our team is also conducting training programs. You can see here Priya Hassan, who has conducted one program and has also conducted in collaboration with other members the second program. This is the kind of participation we get. We really get participants from all over the world, students from all over the world. They really appreciate all the training that they get, and they really want to be a part of the next training program. We have also gone up to the school level, and this year we are very happy to organize the Women and Girls in Astronomy event jointly with the IAU WiA office, the Office of Outreach, and they are really very good at it. They have been doing it very well, and this year we had the opportunity to collaborate and do it with them. So we have received all sorts of very nice contributions from young students from all over the world. And we had also members from all over the world who have participated with their videos in promoting young students in STEM career. And we are also supporting the African Women in Astronomy activities to whatever we can. So this is my second last slide. I just want to show you that we are going to have a IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group session in the General Assembly meeting that will be held in Busan in August 2022. And we will have all sorts of talks and mentoring sessions and lunch session for this, this particular Women in Astronomy Working Group session. And please register if you are interested. And you can, so this is the official website of the IAU, and this is our session website. Please register at both and be a part of this event. And you can see here, we have invited very esteemed guests for our, as invited speakers for our session. So here is our contact email. And that's my last slide. So the points to take away are there are only 21% women in research as IAU members also, but also at every institution. So in most of the countries, sorry, we have only 21% women in research. So we are lacking role models. And we need role models at every career stage in STEM. And there's a lack of proper funding also to support women careers, especially after maternity. Efforts are also needed from institutes and universities in hiring women at permanent researcher positions, especially when they already have had more than 10 years of experience. And there are very few enterprising women in research. This is something very important to understand. So who are these enterprising women? These are the women who are leading projects, who have a way of creating resource, and who are not shy in taking new initiatives and exploring new opportunities, and they are motivated enough to create opportunities for other women and help other women in research. So this is what is our focus for today. And how does it help to increase the percentage of women in research and higher academics? Well, we achieve gender balance, which is at a high focus now with the UN and with the EU Commission. And with many other countries, we get role models, we create a safe and healthy working environment, and it helps to scientific and social development of the society in which we live. So we are sharing the same vision as the UN and EU Commission and many other countries. And so questions raised for the experts is, of course, if there are no efforts in hiring women researchers and if there are very less permanent positions, then what are the means of sustaining their careers and how to encourage young women to take up career in research? So you will get your answers in the following talks that you will be listening next. So with this, I will stop my talk and I'll just thank everyone for your attention. And remember, balancing gender gap is interest of everyone. So thank you, everyone. Yes, any questions? Yes, we have one question from Itzia. Yes, please.
Yes, I was wondering, in your graph, you were showing that the careers of both men and women are impacted by having children, by maternity. I was wondering whether there was any measurement about how much it impacted both genders' careers.
Yes, so I can again share my slide, perhaps. Yeah, one moment. So yeah, there we are. And so in our a survey that we had conducted, we can see that the career of men, it's 1 year or less than 1 year. But for women, it can be 14 years, 10 years, up to 18 years. So this is the measure we get. These are the numbers we got.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any other question? Right. So if you don't have any further questions, then I won't take much of your time, and I'll go to the next. Yes, so we have one more question coming from Pommier. Yes.
Hi. Sorry, about the percentage of women in IAU, I wonder if you consider the bias of women professionals that are not members of IAU. For example, I'm not yet a member despite having applied because I work as a staff for an international observatory. So defining our, how can I say, country of membership is difficult.
Yes.
So probably some other colleagues just don't want to apply because they don't see any reason to. So did you take this possible bias into account?
Yes, yes. I have included all the women, actually. All the women who are doing outreach, who are doing research, and who are running some kind of training programs, but who are not official. Anyone who is a member of the IAU is included inside, but you need to be an IAU member. But for my survey, it was open for everyone. Okay. So even if you are an engineer and if you are interested, you had participated, and we have taken that information into account.
Okay. And then probably, I don't know if you considered only academy, But for example, I work in an observatory, so it's probably outside the definition of academy, but that's definitely an impacting career if you decide to have children.
Yes,
So
of
I guess
course.
they also in US, that's CTIO, Gemini, and I guess you will face, there are similar problems.
Yes, yes, of course. Yes, so we are looking forward for that also. So today what I've shown you was just from permanent researchers, but we have also the survey data from the technical experts, from the staff members, as you say, and from the outreach people. And so in our Busan meeting, we are going to publish all the results, and we will be talking about all the opinions. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So if you have no further questions, then we'll go to the next speaker of today's session. And right, so there we are. So let me just open my. Yeah. Yes. So the next speaker is Dr. Sthabile Kolwa. She's a lecturer from University of Johannesburg, South Africa. She made the history in 2021 by becoming the first Black woman to hold an astronomy faculty position at a South African university. In this position, she teach and conduct research on topics such as radio-selected galaxies and their environment, the baryon cycle, and circumgalactic medium. And while working as an astronomer, she also maintains a commitment to community development, encouraging learners from marginalized groups and low-income backgrounds to pursue academic and industrial STEM careers. And today she's going to share with us her invaluable experience as a lady astronomer with color and talk about elevating the status of African women in STEM for the 4IR. So,
all right, thank you very much, Mamta. Let me share my
yours.
screen. And may I ask quickly how much time I have? 25
well,
minutes.
we will give 20 minutes with 5 minutes for
20
questions.
minutes, 5 minutes for
Yes.
questions. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful panel. I am still quite a junior lecturer. I know I shouldn't use the word junior, so let's say early career as a suitable synonym. And as Mamta said, I'm a lecturer at the University of Johannesburg. And funny enough, when I got this position, I didn't know that up until my election, or rather I should say my transition into this position, there had been no Black women in faculty positions for astronomy. And I'm very young, so the department did a very deviant thing in hiring me, but I'm glad that they did, because I'm very passionate about education, and I'm also passionate about building up the status of African women, not just in STEM, but also specifically in my own field in astronomy. Okay, so I'll go in further with that. That's who I am, get a snapshot of my institutions and also my Twitter timeline. Okay, so before I get into the talk, I'll give you some background about how I got into astronomy. And I believe that the foundations is the most important part, because this usually happens when we're children, when we're teenagers. What interests we develop usually carve out where we end up in our adult lives. So this is a pictorial representation of all my interests when I was younger. I had a very keen interest in the natural sciences and in engineering. And you can see some of the TV shows that I watched. David Attenborough was a very important figure in my life, as well as Bill Nye, the science guy, who I learned so much from watching their documentaries and TV shows. And just for fun, I would read atlases, my own school atlas textbook and the encyclopedia. And I was a child who would regularly browse even online encyclopedias, Microsoft Encarta, and I made good use of the computer room at school and the CD-ROMs, the educational CD-ROMs they had available to learn more and more about the world around me, the natural world, about history outside of the classroom. And of course, inside of the classroom, I was very eager to learn as much as possible. And I was a very good student. I was very keen on finding out more about literature and the sciences and everything. And I'm glad that I had great support from my mother, who was also very supportive in creating dialogue about and fostering this and helping me learn more and more on my own. And one good example of this is when she bought my sister and I a bedspread with the World Atlas on it and a pillow with the flags of the world. So even in going to bed, our mom wanted us to make sure that we continued learning. So this is an example of how our family figures and also figures of authority can help us in our development later on. And this is me in high school with a very decorated blazer I'm proud of. Okay, so my transition into astronomy was quite a long and windy road. I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do coming out of high school, and yeah, this can be normal sometimes. So it's really important to have good career guidance at the high school level as well, because I did kind of fumble around, though I did get into the University of Chicago after finishing high school, but unfortunately without proper guidance into finding scholarships and funding, I wasn't able to go. That was a great disappointment. And then I began an electrical engineering degree at WITS soon after the disappointment from UChicago, but I wasn't really interested in electrical engineering. I kind of lost the sense of stimulation and focus. So I ended up dropping out. So there were some rocky and shaky beginnings to my journey towards being educated at the tertiary level. But eventually I managed to stabilize, and I found myself at the University of Cape Town. I enrolled at the University of Cape Town and finished a degree in astrophysics. Let me slow down, sorry for speeding up, where I then went on to work on a master's degree at the University of the Western Cape, and found some good collaborators who were working on MeerKAT projects that would be very important for me in the future. And finally, I finished my PhD in Munich at the Ludwig Maximilian University, and that's me at my PhD defense. So while I did have a rocky start to my education, everything worked out in the end. And I think the important thing is to know that even though a journey is long and winding, there is possibility for a wonderful ending. But there were some low points along my journey. There were some challenges. During my undergrad, between second and fourth year, I felt quite isolated because I was the only Black female student in the class. It was difficult to form study groups because I felt othered, and I felt uncomfortable even sometimes approaching groups of guys. They seemed so close-knit, and I was the only girl and I felt left out. My study buddy from first year decided to drop out of physics, which was a tremendous heartbreak for me. But I pulled through. But I must mention as well that stereotype threat was also quite a barrier, because I had so much anxiety and worry about confirming stereotypes about Black girls not being suitable to work in the sciences. And this did affect my ability to really focus on learning as much as possible and being good at what I would eventually end up doing. And then imposter syndrome was a big issue for me all the way through my studies, from bachelor's level all the way to the PhD. I sometimes doubted my ability to complete projects and whether I'd be able to do it. I doubted that I'd be successful in the future. Especially during my PhD, I felt I might be less prepared for the PhD than my counterparts who had gone to some really prestigious colleges. And I would hear the University of Cambridge and Caltech and the University of Toronto, and I would feel intimidated and think, gosh, I can't compete with these students, you know, and also a fear of the future, wondering if my employment, I guess the possibility for employment would be good, for the prospect, that's the word, prospect for employment would be good for me, because I was in such a competitive environment. But the important thing is not quitting, even though one may face low times like this. As Nelson Mandela said, a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. Papa Madiba always had so many wise things to say. So it's good that I pulled through. During the student years, okay, there were also highs. So there were some tough times, but I can say that I triumphed in many ways. One of my biggest triumphs was learning how to navigate communications cross-culturally. And this is something I learned through the collaborative research that I carried out at my PhD level. And also socially, I formed some very good bonds with some other young people, the students that were around me, and also the postdoctoral fellows in my PhD at the European Southern Observatory. And this helped me feel a greater sense of belonging. So I began to really connect with the broader astrophysics community both within the workplace and also in the social context. And as a result of all of this, I seem to have an improved sense of self-confidence. After having my first authored peer-reviewed paper accepted, I was very confident about going forward in astrophysics. I felt capable, also felt more hopeful about the future. And very importantly, and the spillover effect into my life was becoming comfortable in my identity as a queer person and becoming comfortable in my body, learning to run longer distances. And that's me finishing a 10K race. And then there's also a picture of me at the CSD parade in Munich. And in my spare time, I rediscovered my voice, my creative voice, through music and performance, as a vocalist and a guitarist. And there seem to be many, many improvements in the rest of my life as my work life improved. Everything else seemed to fall into place. Also, another wonderful thing about astronomy is the opportunity to travel. As a result of picking this career, I've been able to go places, specifically observatories. My first observing trip was in Sutherland in South Africa, just outside of Cape Town. Not very, just outside, a couple of hundred, tens of kilometers outside of Cape Town, where I worked on a project to observe using an optical telescope at the observatory. And another observing trip where I went to the APEX, which is Atacama Pathfinder Experiment. It is one of the ALMA Pathfinders, and this is located in San Pedro in Chile. And this was where I got some observing experience as well, taking observations for other astronomers who were allocated time by ESO. And that's me at 5,000 meters above sea level next to the APEX telescope. There are also many international conferences I had the wonderful opportunity to go to, where I met rather esteemed astronomers, some people whose work I'd read for many years, even their popular science books, which I was very happy about, and also attending open panel committees. So these are meetings where proposal time is allocated in ESO for ESO telescopes, and this is us at one of the meetings, the students and postdocs, where we volunteer to count votes and also sit in the meetings, which was great because we got to find out what kind of discussions lead to the allocation of proposal time. And then here's us, a group of students at a radio interferometry school at Astron in the Netherlands, and we're standing in front of the Westerbork synthesis radio telescope taking a group photo. So I've been many places, and this is all because of astronomy. Here's a snapshot into three of my main research fields at this point. I am firstly interested in the circumgalactic medium, which is the halo gas around galaxies. So this is the gas medium that spans to hundreds of kiloparsecs. And using observational data, multi-wavelength observations, we are looking to find the origin of the multi-phase CGMs in galaxies, and also understand its structure in terms of its ionized, molecular, and neutral phases. And we also want to find observational constraints on AGN feedback, or place observational constraints by looking at the interaction of radio jets with the surrounding gas halos of very far away radio galaxies. And this is just two examples of work that's been published. It's a spectrum and an image of the spiderweb galaxy here, recently published, and this is the cloudy photoionization modeling plot from my 2019 paper, where I used news data to investigate the ionized gas around one radio galaxy. I've also been interested in studying the environments of AGN and the links between the jet powering and the environment. And lately, I'm also looking at characterizing radio sources firstly by quantifying sources of bias in radio continuum surveys, and also investigating the properties of star-forming galaxies and AGN hosts detected by radio telescopes such as MeerKAT on the left here, and UGMRT, the upgraded giant meter wave radio telescope. So now to the second part of my talk, which is more to do with the idea of gender disparity or gender inequity, which is more on board with the main topic of this seminar. So we know that there are gender disparities globally, and a quick snapshot to this is, first of all, knowing that almost 50% of the world's population is female, but only 15 countries have elected a woman to the highest seat of power, which is usually either the presidency or some sort of high-level position in that country. And despite this, despite the fact that we're almost 50% of the world's population, within very key STEM fields, such as data and AI, engineering, and cloud computing, there's only less than 26% representation of women. And that is quite dismal, if you ask me. And despite that, the fact that we know that gender equity is good, and this is shown from some examples, and I've given this as a real life example. It's not specifically astronomy, but rather this is within the broader STEM. So this is the T in STEM tech. These are two women who work at the EA Games Maxis Studios, who are responsible for developing The Sims 4. And this is a team that is known for having a very good gender balance. And also, as a result, or maybe this is not really proven, but given that this team has such a good gender balance, it just so happens that roughly 60% of the consumers of this game are women. And although I cannot point to a direct correlation, I can see why, in a sense, so many women would appreciate playing this game, because there's a good representation of women in the workforce who have been able to plug in their ideas and viewpoints and preferences and explain to the men what women are looking for in their gaming experience. So here's a positive example of a good gender balance. And in terms of economies, rather at the economic level, it's been proven that widening the talent pool to include women does lead to an increased rate of economic progress. And this is chronicled in this publication. And Malaysia and the United Arab Emirates, who have implemented firm policies to increase the female representation within their workforces in different sectors, have, of course, very booming economies. So although the correlation is not direct, we can loosely draw conclusions from the ways in which workplaces and also countries implement policies that lead to good results for them. Secondly, looking at this plot, we know that based on statistical data that is currently available, education level within a population, how educated a group population is, a demographic, has some correlation, or has, yes, some correlation, I'll say, with the gross domestic product per capita. As you can see, it's a positive one. And from this, one can draw the conclusion that a skilled female workforce is very likely, or rather just a skilled population is very likely to lead to an eradication of poverty and hunger. But very specifically, in order to achieve a skilled population that is as high as what you see in these countries, women also need to be educated. So there is definitely a case for making sure women are educated and also making sure that they are invited to have a seat at the table in workplaces. Now going on to the topic of gender data bias, this is a book written by Caroline Criado Perez, published very recently, where she goes into great detail about how data in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning and all of those systems that are used in so many of the products, the tech products that we have at our disposal are becoming more and more gender biased. And one example, if this is not even in tech, this is just simply in vehicle design, is seatbelts. Crash test dummies are usually designed to have a male figure or male body type. And as a result, women are generally seen to have a 47% higher probability for injury in car crashes and a 17% higher probability of dying in car crashes, because seatbelts and airbags are not taking them into account specifically. And this is just one example out of many of how women are suffering as a result of products and tech not being designed with them in mind. So if we're not careful, AI will begin to reproduce this social or societal rather gender inequities that already exist during the fourth industrial revolution. And I would think one of the best ways to counteract this is to have women designing more of the artificial intelligence products. So they need to be coding, they need to be developing to ensure that these gender biases are removed as much as possible. And there are many examples of brilliant women all throughout history that tell us that the idea of a woman being intellectually weak or incapable of working in sciences or in technology or in engineering or in mathematics is wrong completely. In this wonderful infographic produced by the IAU Women in Astronomy group, there are several figures from history. There's Wang Zhenyi, Hypatia, Sophie Brahe, Valentina Tereshkova. You can Google more about them in your own time. But these are all pioneering women. They were some of the first to accomplish exactly what they did in their fields. Marie Curie is a good example of a pioneer, her Nobel Prize win and work in radioactivity. And this is essentially a way of debunking the myth that women should not work in STEM. Just take a look at what women have accomplished in history. And women have been very instrumental in the first 3 industrial revolutions. So why should we not participate in this one before? Now we come to statistics on African women in STEM. And this is taken from the UNESCO Science Report towards 2030. This was published in 2015. And I've selected a plot here, which shows you the share of female tertiary graduates in engineering. And this is specifically in sub-Saharan Africa. You can see that women comprise less than 35%, okay, this being the 35% benchmark of all engineering graduates. And as a general, women comprise 28% of the African STEM workforce. So this is a clear underrepresentation.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, within South Africa, there's also a very low representation of women among NRF-rated researchers, and women author only 25% of published scientific papers. Here's another infographic which shows us very dismal statistics of women leaders in universities and other academic institutions, or rather other research institutions. So some of the possible reasons, and Mamta has mentioned them in a previous talk, of why there's a gender attainment .
Priya, can you hear me? Is there a problem with the connection?
I can hear you, Mamta, but I
yes.
cannot hear the talk, and I don't know whether anybody else is online.
Yeah, exactly. I think.
Yes, I am online. There's problem only with the speaker, I think.
With the speaker, yes, I guess.
Yes.
So, all right. In that case, we will go to the next talk. All right, we'll do that. Yes, I guess she got disconnected. Okay, so we will go for the next talk, and when she joins us back, then we can ask her our questions if we have any. Okay, so
Matma, is she still sharing the screen? Do we need to stop her sharing the screen?
I have put in multiple participants can share simultaneously.
Okay, so I'll try sharing my screen now, shall
Yes,
I?
yes, please, yes. So let's go ahead with the next speaker of today's session, and that's Dr. Helen Masson. She is a British theoretical physicist at the Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics at the University of Cambridge. She holds a leadership position in solar physics and has been involved in many solar space projects such as Skylab, Yoko, and the Solar Maximum Mission. So Dr. Masson has been named as one of the Women of Outstanding Achievement of 2010 in recognition of her work in communication within science, engineering, and technology. She was appointed Officer of the Order of the British Empire in 2014, birthday honors for services to higher education and to women in science, engineering, and technology. She is actively working on STEM projects, and she has brought STEM even up to school level. That's quite challenging to do, especially to explain difficult scientific phenomena to students at school. But she's using arts to keep them motivated and interested and come to STEM topics and STEM fields. So we will hear more about her achievements and activities in this talk on A Life with Sun, A Career Journey. And Dr. Masson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Matma. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can, yes.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. Today, I'd like to share with you some of my passion about my research, but also some of the journey and maybe some of the obstacles and some of the celebrations I've had en route. I'm now quite old, as you can tell, probably much older than most of the people here, but it's a great honor to be invited. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge University of Cambridge, but also my funding body, STFC, which is the Scientific Research Funding Body, Science Technology Facilities Council. They fund our research and all of my outreach. Here you can see an image of the sun taken from space from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. And on the side there, you can see an explosion, a solar flare. So as a whole team of solar researchers, we are trying to understand the processes that go on in the sun. I've been extremely fortunate in my career, which is a very long career spanning over several decades, to have worked on many different solar missions with NASA, with the European Space Agency, with colleagues in India, with colleagues in Japan, so internationally, as former speakers were saying. I won't discuss all of these projects in the last couple of decades. I'll just mention a couple en route. But as I say, it's been a great privilege to work. And one of the things I'd like to emphasize is that I don't work alone. I work with a team in what I do. And here is my research team. I was the head of the research team here, both past and current members. And we have another member at the moment, Yamini, who I think is on this Zoom as well from India. And here are colleagues from all countries across the world. Durgesh there is now heading a group in Pune at IAU in solar physics. Other colleagues of mine are now professors, students, former students, professors in the USA. Vanessa, just on the right-hand side, is now over in California. Peter, on the left-hand side, my first student, and next to him, Steve, are now professors in the USA. And I have people from Europe, from all over the world. So it's a great pleasure to work with the team, and I've always enjoyed working with the team, and I've enjoyed seeing the members of my team grow in their knowledge and in their stature and develop their careers as well. I'm not sure if any of you have seen a total eclipse of the sun. If you haven't seen one, do take the opportunity to do so, please. It is one of the most awesome experiences, natural experiences that you can have, not just from what you see, but also from what happens around you. And in an eclipse, we see the solar corona, which is the atmosphere of the sun. The moon blocks out the disk, and it's the only time we really see it with our own eyes. Never look at the sun, it's much too bright, but except during a total eclipse of the sun. And you can see a lot of structure there, there's a lot of magnetic field. I won't go into the detail of the sun science, though I could do, but I'll tell you why eclipses are so important in my life. For my research work, I studied in the 1970s at University College in London. I did my first degree at another college, Queen Mary College in London, and then I went to University College to do my PhD. And I have to say, I was very happy in the sciences. I felt comfortable, even though I was in a minority. I was happy with the people that I was studying with, and I was very happy at University College London. On the left-hand side is my supervisor, Professor Mike Seaton, who was very, very supportive in what I did, always made me feel welcome, made me feel confident, and of course helped me to grow academically as well. Next to him is, talking to him, is Dr. Alan Burgess, who was at Cambridge and who became my the person I went to work with at Cambridge. These men were very important in my life and supported me throughout my life. And my supervisor even supported me when I had children. And I think that support is extremely important to people, to have somebody that's supporting you, that's on your side, and that's able to give you confidence when times are a little bit difficult. Sadly, neither of them are any longer with us, but I still remember them and they're still very important in my life. The solar corona is extremely hot, and because it's so hot, it emits very strongly in the ultraviolet and the X-rays. And this is an X-ray image taken from a Japanese satellite, and you can see how bright it is in X-rays. And this has been the source of my work. For my graduate work, I studied eclipse observations, which is why eclipses are close to my heart in the visible, but then I moved on to look at the spectrum from the ultraviolet and the X-rays. And as I say, I was very fortunate to work on many space missions, and one of them was the Solar Maximum mission. And this looked at those explosions that I showed you very early on. It's called solar flares. But this work involved me going over to NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center for a substantial period of time, several months. And at that time, as you can see, I had 2 young children. So it was challenging. But again, I had support. At that time, I had support from my husband who came with me, and also my family, my sisters, and my mother even coming over to help me and support me. It was a difficult time to continue research, and I think this is one of the obstacles that you often meet with young families. Fortunately now I think there may be a little bit more support for you to take families with you. But I was able to work, and it was important that I did work at that time on those space missions, on Solar Maximum mission. So work-life balance is difficult. But as I say, I've been very, very lucky in my life to have had strong support from my family, from my husband, and from my extended family. I then moved as a postdoc to the University of Cambridge, and I have to say this was a bit of a shock for me, because Cambridge is a difficult place, or at least it was at those times. It has changed a lot. It was very traditional, it was very male dominated, and I wasn't given quite the same welcome that I felt, or didn't feel quite as at home as I had felt at University College in London. Cambridge is very traditional. It's excellent, of course, highly competitive, given a lot of responsibility. The town itself is beautiful, but I was able to get support from other people within the university, both male and female. And I went on training courses, and I was taught to look around for that support, to ask for help from people around you. I joined the Department of Applied Maths and Theoretical Physics, the Faculty of Mathematics. And I'll say just a little bit more about that in a minute. And also, after a few years, I joined St Edmund's College, which was a key support network, and which I contributed to immensely with the work that I did. So at the Department of Applied Mathematics, as you can imagine, it's highly competitive, and things didn't always go according to plan, particularly when I had a young family and I was working part-time. But I got tremendous support, and in particular, I wanted to mention one head of department, Professor David Crichton, sadly again no longer with us, but he stood by me and gave me support and helped me to get through the difficult time, giving me work to do, but also supporting me. And that support is the reason I am here now, that he was able to stand by me and help me to combine a faculty position. He got me a faculty position and also a research position. And that's early on in the days, and now we have a beautiful department at which I work, that you can see there. But also the college, which I'll come back to later, was an important area of support. So SOHO was one of the projects that I've worked on. SOHO is now almost 20 years old. It was probably one of the most sophisticated observatories we've had to look at the sun. And I was working on this prior to its launch and also after its launch. And we were able to study the interior of the sun, the solar atmosphere, and the solar wind that flows off it. It was again back at Goddard Space Flight Center, which was a second home to me by now, with many colleagues and friends there. And I was involved with an instrument which was led by the UK and part of that team, a very important part of that team before even the SOHO was launched, but thereafter in the analysis of data. And again, it was really important. Everybody in the team had a different role, but I was very grateful for the support that I got from other team members. So here's an image from SOHO, just to give you an example. This is an image taken in the ultraviolet, and here you can see it's green. The sun isn't green, of course, but it's ultraviolet emission, which we can't see. So we've colored it green, and this is at a particular wavelength range, which is sensitive to about 1 million degrees. So here you can see the 1 million degree corona and the sun rotating. We also studied eruptions from the sun, and here you can see an eruption from the sun. Sometimes those eruptions go away from us, but sometimes they head towards us. Coronal mass ejections, and they can affect the Earth's environment. The Earth has its own magnetic protection, but they can disturb that, causing aurora and other effects which are less pleasant space weather effects affecting technology. Another project that I worked on was called Hinode. This was a joint project with the USA and with Japan. And we had many, many years to say it was launched in 2006. And we still are using the data from this instrument. The instrument that I'm a specialist in spectroscopy, and the instrument that in particular I worked on, Louise Hara there in the picture in the center there, was the principal investigator on the ICE instrument, which is a spectrometer that we worked on in Hinode. Again, working as a team to make the observations, to analyze the data, and to go on. As part of the work, it was interpreting spectra is very complicated, both in the ultraviolet and in the X-ray and the visible. But what we built was an atomic database, and I was one of the founder members of this. It was a collaboration between UK, USA, and Italy, and we built an atomic database which enabled people to analyze solar spectra, indeed astrophysical spectra. We called this Chianti because this is a picture from the Arcetri Observatory in Tuscany, and you can see how beautiful it is. And we thought if we gave it a good name, people would use it. And indeed they do. And we now have university used within solar physics to analyze spectra, but also other imaging data, and to prepare instruments and to propose instruments. And there's the team quite a while back, as you can see from the dark hair, which is now gray. And at this time, or early on, in fact, after the 1999 eclipse, we put together a website called SunTrek, which was for UK schools. And this was put together by researchers throughout the UK with coordination from me. And we had information on the website about different solar research projects. We had projects for the schools to do. We had solar guides illustrated on the project. It was great fun putting it together, and it is thousands and thousands of people worldwide have been using and accessing it. In 2017, I was privileged to go across to the USA to be part of the Great American Eclipse. I was NASA's special solar representative in the Smoky Mountains National Park, and it was just a phenomenal experience. I've been able to experience several eclipses, but each one is different. And this was particularly enjoyable because of the welcome that I received from the people in the park and looking after me and taking care of me. Just as an aside, the frog there, different mythologies believe different things about an eclipse, and the Cherokee Indians, which are in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, used to believe that huge frogs were eating the sun during a total eclipse. I've had the privilege of working in several different countries, and in 2005, 2006, I worked with the students in South Africa from, we took a group of UK students over to South Africa to work with the students in the former township areas and set up science clubs. We took equipment, and this was led by an inspirational teacher called Mike Cripps from Norfolk here in the UK, who was passionate about astronomy. Sadly, he's no longer with us, but his legacy lives on in the science clubs that we established in South Africa, which I believe are still running. Great honor and a great pleasure to be able to do that. I've also worked and collaborated extensively on a research front with my colleagues in Pune at IUCA. They have a new solar satellite going up at ETA L1, which will be launched at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So we've worked on many scientific collaborations. Sargam there, who's in the center of the picture there, came across and did a PhD with me and now has a postdoc in Glasgow. As I said, we've interacted and had visitors. Dergish was in my group, who heads the group, was in my group for many years. So a very strong research collaboration in solar physics, but also I've had the honor to work with IUCA SciPop. And the people there, Samir and Sonal. And we've worked with students and we've worked with teachers whenever I go across to visit, which is generally once a year, sadly not so frequently later. I wanted to mention somebody, Ratna, who was the director of Nehru Planetarium for many years. And I wanted to remember her because sadly she died of COVID in summer 2021, a great loss, but she influenced the lives of so many young students and astronomers. And I had the privilege to go over there, give a talk at Nehru Planetarium and work with her in 2015. I shall always remember that. So as Matthew mentioned, I have been honored to receive some awards, and it is a great privilege to be rewarded in this way for the work. With an OBE, you don't know the nomination, you don't know who's nominated you. I can only assume that the university nominated me, but you never see and you never know. But I was nominated and received an OBE in 2014, a great honor. And in 2018, I received the Royal Astronomical Society's Annie Maunder Medal for outreach, celebrating a great woman, astronomer, Annie Maunder, who worked in solar and stellar spectroscopy, but never really got on eclipse data, but never really got the acknowledgement at the time that she deserved. I now lead a project for the past 5 years, which combines scientists and artists called Sunspace Art. And we've worked with over 150 schools here in the UK, thousands of children and teachers at events, at festivals, etc. It's been a huge success. The scientists and the artists work side by side to give a science presentation. It's not just the sun, solar system, human space travel, all sorts of different things, polar sciences, environmental sciences, and the artists then work with the students to produce creative work. It's just one example here. I have so many examples. The children, it develops their confidence and they're able to express, they're able to reinforce their learning, and they're express their creativity. We need creative people in the future. We need people that think outside the box. And for example, the feedbacks are tremendous. Today, I love this lesson because the science and art inspired me. And that's what we want to do. We want to inspire people. And we were very fortunate. This is only half our team, but this is half the team of the Sunspace Art team. And we actually got the Sir Arthur Clarke 2020 Award for Space Achievement in Education and Outreach. A great privilege indeed to get this. And each member of the team works individually very hard towards the team effort. So in conclusion, it's been a great honor to work with schools in the UK, in South Africa, in India, around the world. I'm very honored to do this, but the reward that I get from it, satisfaction I get from it, is in their faces, is often in their faces. The excitement they have when they're doing something, creating something scientifically, or even when they listen to me talk and they say, oh, maybe I could do that. And that's where I feel is important as being a mentor, as being somebody showing them that actually, yes, you can do that. It is possible. Follow your dreams. So as I mentioned, St. Edmund's College earlier, and this has been fundamental in my life in Cambridge, to have a group of people. I've contributed a great deal to the college as a tutor. That means looking after the students, and as senior tutor, that means looking after all the students, pastoral care, academic care, which I very much enjoyed, but it is a huge responsibility. Our master, Catherine Arnold, there in the center, is now master, and many of the masters of colleges are now female, which is great to see. So Cambridge has changed dramatically from when I was younger many years ago, when we didn't even have a nursery in the university, to now when females play a much greater role in the colleges and in the faculties. So I have a little bit of advice for younger people, maybe more for students, but I think what I would say is be yourself, follow who you are and what you are, and don't feel you need to fit into a pattern of what somebody else thinks you should be. So be yourself, be true to what matters in your life. If you want to have a family, if you want to combine a family and research, or if you don't want to have a family, but be true to what matters in your life. And I would definitely say in success, remember those that have helped you. And I will always remember those people that have been there for me in very difficult times. And I've tried to help other people when they've been going through difficult times. Failure, we all fail at times. You know, life isn't always smooth. But treat failure as an opportunity to learn and to move forward. It happens, we can learn from it, and we can change. And sometimes our paths change in amazing directions, which we never anticipated. Never be afraid of a new challenge. Don't take on too much. Take on what you're able to take on, but don't be afraid. Rise to the challenge. When I took on faculty work, my head of department said to me, "You can do it. I know you can do it." And that's important because that gave me the confidence to do it. And engage in other activities besides just our academic activities. So what I'd say in conclusion is that I'd like to thank all my solar physics friends, in particular, males and females. We've had such a lot of fun working together. And I have to say, although in astronomy in general, there are a few females, in my field, in the UK, in solar physics, we have quite a high proportion of females, and here's some of them lined up. We were coming back from a conference in Spain, Hinodi conference, and in fact, all of these people you see here are professors, except for myself. I'm not a professor, but all of the others are professors in solar physics. So we have quite an array of strong female role models in solar physics here in the UK and perhaps in Europe in general. So that's where I wanted to end. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. That was really very, very refreshing, interesting, with lots of activities that you have been leading actually. And your advice, I guess I just totally agree with you. One has to be oneself and one has to really believe in what one thinks is important and just go on with that. Any questions from the participants? Anyway,
can I mention one thing which I forgot to mention, and we mentioned
Sure.
it earlier, and that's about working part-time. Of course, it's very difficult sometimes to sustain having a small family and working full-time. So actually during my career, for quite a substantial part, I did work part-time, and that was quite actually, I mean, Cambridge personnel were supportive, but in general, it wasn't something that people did. And when it came to promotion, people didn't quite know what to do about it, as you say, because I had worked part-time. But indeed, again, the heads of department were very supportive and said, no, this person's working part-time. So I think there are difficulties like that, like age limits, like things like that, that you have to challenge as well. Don't just go with it, challenge it.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. Yeah. Totally, yes. All right, do we have any question? Well, I just have one quick question. So what I have been reading is the students in UK especially, there are not so many girl students in university level in physics, and that we see even in France actually,
yes.
In engineering classes and computer science classes. So what
That's
are
true.
your efforts actually in this direction?
There's a lot of effort in trying to address this. It's been known for a very long time, but it's felt that in spite of all our efforts to try and address this, it hasn't really changed. So the Institute of Physics, for example, is a new campaign called Limitless, which is trying, it's actually not just females, it's also ethnic minorities maybe that are not going into the sciences as well. So I think that it's a question of peer pressure very often. That people feel that they can't do that because it's not right for females to do that. So I do think that the more that they see that it's possible you know, and that it's fine, it's okay, it's normal to do that. And that's why I like to talk to girls in schools and say, yes, you know, it's fine, it's not a problem. If science is what you're good at, science is what you should do. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because I think that there is still a problem though, and I think it's primarily peer pressure and what people think that girls should be, should look like. You know, there's a lot of peer pressure, and even perhaps worse now with modern technology, with Facebook, with all of these things, that girls are under such a lot of pressure to be something that they perhaps don't feel they are.
Yes. Do you have any question from Maria?
Is it true that that's the same in many countries? Because we often feel that in Europe it's slightly better.
No, I'm not sure.
No, it's sorry, it's not better. And yeah, thank you, Helen, being such a role model, especially for me, and be super, super hyper supportive. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's hard.
Great.
Thank you.
We have
Maria.
another question from Itzia.
Yeah, I was very impressed by this site that combines science in art. And I imagine this is the new project. So I would like to know where you are leading this. What are the new challenges and what you think that you can accomplish in the future with this?
Well, it is challenging, but what we found is, and I'm happy to, I would be very happy to have a, you know, Zoom and talk offline, obviously, because I could say a lot about this. I think what we want to do is develop creativity, and there's a lot of bias sometimes in the girls against doing sciences or in the boys against doing the arts, and yet actually when they both do it, they enjoy it, you know. And some of the boys would say, I don't want to do art, but actually then they enjoy it and they create things. So it reinforces what they're learning, but it also gives them an opportunity to create something which they then have great pride in. And it's that excitement, it's that pride in what they've done and in what they've created, which when they show each other and they share with each other and they really enjoy doing that, that actually builds their confidence, which is all they need sometimes to get them started or get them interested. STFC has been very supportive of combining the science with the arts, and there's several different projects, so I can give you more information about that. But there's several different projects now that they are supporting and are supported throughout the UK with regard to, not mine is visual arts, but also music or other aspects of the arts, poetry, things like that. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Helen. It was great to listen to your inspiring talk, and we appreciate all the activities that you're doing. It's great. Right, let's go to the next speaker of today's session. That's Dr. Itzia Artsaka. I'm sorry if I haven't pronounced it correctly. She's a researcher at INAOE, Mexico, and director of the International School for Young Astronomers at the International Astronomical Union. She is actively involved in several outreach activities and training programs at the national and international level, and she has equally received lots of recognition for her efforts, global efforts that she's been doing. So it's a huge job. She's also actively supporting women career in astronomy and has participated in various talks, events to support this cause, and has many ongoing projects in training programs for education and in education for young students at international level. So today she's going to talk about the International School of Young Astronomers, a 55-year-old program with worldwide development in research, education, and outreach. So it's really great to have you, and we are really anxious to listen to all what you can say us and advise us. So it's here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I would like to say that it is a great honor to be here. It is a great honor to represent this program, which is a flagship program for the IAU. I am putting work into this program just as a volunteer, and everybody in the Office for Young Astronomers, we are volunteers. There is no staff in there. And just as an opening, you have a photograph of our last school that we had in China just before the pandemic started. We haven't had any school afterwards, but I'm going to describe the general program and some of the achievements that we have had and some of the challenges that we are facing. So the International School for Young Astronomers is a program that has been going on since 1967. They are 3-week long intensive postgraduate schools for parts of the world where the students do not have as much access to a broad up-to-date astrophysics background. But despite that, they are doing masters, PhDs, and this is a program to basically provide them with a network, both of a high-profile astrophysicists working around the world, and also peers in their own region, where they will develop into the new generation of professionals in the field. So our target population is isolated MSc and PhD students, and the goal is to broaden the participants' perspective on astronomy. And these are just some of the pictures of school graduation day for different schools we have had through the years. So typically we have between 30 and 50 students, and typically between 10 and 15 lecturers in these schools. So the benefits for the students is contact with international lecturers. Sometimes supervisions develop, and sometimes they even are recruited in the lecturer's PhD school. But mostly it is about providing the network and providing the contacts for the future. Sometimes it is, more often than not, it is their first international event that they go to, and it builds the confidence of the students that they can basically get inserted into the research world or any of the other astrophysics applications that there can be. So as I said, very, very intensive. They have access to quality notes. They have practice with basic bibliographic and virtual observatory tools, some observational experience. Recently, we have implemented workshops on career development that I will just go into a little bit later on. We have a mentoring program for those students that would like to just continue in contact with the school, lecturers, directors, or with any other IAU member. And as I said, we have an active network, and we try to keep it alive through email lists and Facebook posts, etc., etc. And this cannot be done in a virtual format. Recently, we conducted a survey from our more than 1,400 students. We had replies for a bit less than 100 of them. A lot of our students do their PhD or their masters, and they leave academia, and then it is difficult to contact them. But from just the replies of those that are still working on astronomy and basically care to reply, we know that 50% of them are members of the IAU. And this includes students or alumni that have gone through the program up to 5 years ago, so that we gave them time to basically develop their careers a little bit. And 90% work in astronomy and 10% work in other STEM fields. And basically they rank whether they benefited or not from the school, and whether they strengthened their research and developed the network. And the answers were massively yes, that this school helped them. Most of the students actually qualify the schools as transformational in their careers. I want to pay a little bit of homage to those that came before me. I am the current director, but as I said, this is a long program. There was an effort to establish this in the 1967 and basically establish it as an activity that went on carrying regularly. From all these directors, I have been in contact with, obviously, my predecessor, Kamchin Leung, and Michelle Garibaldi just deserves special mention because she has been like the mother of these schools for so many years. And she was the one that basically got me into this program. She, as director, and Nidia Morel, as local director of the school in 2002 in Argentina, invited me to be a lecturer in one of these schools, and this was my first contact with the schools. But little did I know that I actually have had influence from these schools through my career not knowing that this had been so. So this is a picture of me when I was at university. I did my bachelor's degree studies in the University of the Basque Country. I am original from Bilbao in the northern Spain within the Basque region. And this is a picture of first year in university. Little did I know that I was going to end up working in Mexico, but I would like to remind for those of you that are not so aware of the history of Spain. Spain in the 60s, in the 70s was a developing country. And so ISIA was a target ISIA had a target in Spain to develop the Spanish community that now is vibrant. And these people that just surround me in the picture are people that went through the schools that I know now they went through the schools because I have the catalog of people. I have the database of who went through the schools, and I was surprised to see that so many of my lecturers to the right, people who helped me through the development of my PhD actually had been ISIA alumni. And here I have the head of department of my institute, INAOE, who actually as a Cuban national just moved to Mexico to just carry his PhD studies, and he is now right now the departmental head. So as I said, target. So what are the target population of the schools? This is a map of where the schools have been held. In blue colors and greens are larger numbers of schools or being held in those countries, and yellow just have one school in the whole history of ISIA. But basically the target population is described by this graph of Noiru Kaifu, where you can see the number of individual members or national members, and this is how many members per population, per habitant there are in those countries. And basically our main target are those that have very, very little representation in the IAU or have no representation in the IAU. And then we have countries that we call developing poles, which although they have more than 100 individuals, members of the IAU, their ratio to the population is actually very small. And so we tend to carry schools in all these countries, and we tend to target students that are in this part of the diagram. Although this is a reflection after the fact. I mean, of course, we have a sense of where the students are isolated, but when you come to think about it, this is a good reflection of what our target population is. So this is 53 years, 42 schools so far, 27 countries where the schools have been held. Lecturers come from around the world. We try them to be just first-rank professionals, people who have made important contributions in research, and that can be made mentors and role models for the students. So this is where the lecturers come from. And this is where the students have come from our 42 schools. As you can see, there is an uneven distribution in the map. Of course, we have large gaps and very few members in Europe or in the USA. Normally those are because they come originally from the country where we are holding a school or come from the region we are holding a school. And significantly, there is a correlation between the country that hosts the school and the number of students that come from that region. So just analyzing the database, we can see that the participation of women over the years have been around 34%. This graph just represents per decade what is the percentage of women that we have had as students in the schools. We have slowly been increasing our ratios to just go over 40% in the 2010 decade, but you can see the large bars which represent the whole range of percentages between different schools. So we still have schools where there is a very small number of women, and we are trying to target that problem and try to just enforce that there is a larger percentage of women that participate in the schools. On the other hand, there are other schools where you might say we are overrepresented. So we also tend to have like a gender balance in each of the schools. These are just a few pictures of schools around the world, highlighting mostly the women representation. And as I said, I mean, we take special care to give perspective, gender perspective within the schools. So part of that that action goes through these career development workshops that we have established. 10 hours of the school material comes in sessions to basically try to show them how to develop careers. And this goes for both men and women, of course. But in the sense that in the way of doing this, we can actually touch upon topics such as unconscious bias, mental health, work ethics, and job opportunities, alternative job careers for PhD and master students in astrophysics. Within our session on work ethics, we actually try to integrate all of these so that we can study like real cases, of course, with fake names, such as Leslie, a pre-tenure astronomer, takes a parental leave after having a baby. Her colleagues think parental leave is a free ride, and Leslie should be more productive at research during this time because of the lack of teaching commitment. This is part of a package of 25 real cases that have been assembled by Caitlin Casey and Kartik Seth in their workshop, The Gray Zone of Academics, which we have adopted as a model. And it promotes discussion on gender, age, ethnic inclusion, any unconscious biases we might be subject to, cultural difference and behavior, nurturing and toxic work environments, harassment, undue use of other ideas of work, role models, diversity. And I have to say that this package of the workshop on career development is very much appreciated by the alumni, and we have a student satisfaction in our questionnaires of larger than 97%. So through the years, we have had many influential alumni that have gone through the schools. This is just a little show gallery of people from around the world that have been EASY alumni. And I would like to just very briefly highlight at least 4 of the women who are influential and have been alumni and the role that the schools have played in their career. So the first one I'm going to introduce is Gloria Dubner. Gloria is a researcher on the interstellar medium, very especially on supernova remnants. We have here her at the school being a PhD student, her nowadays being already an emeritus professor, very, very successful career. And this is one of the oldest photographs that we have from one of the easiest schools. And so she highlights that it was a unique opportunity to widen the panorama of her career, especially during those years that Argentina was under a military government, and there were no great possibilities for education and training in science. And so she mentions that she still remembers the classes. So Gloria Dubner, 1977, is a Brazil alumna. She has a minor planet named after her. She was the director of one of the major institutes in her country. And it is really a great honor to have her among our past alumni. Another of the famous astronomers that have been alumni of our schools is Monica Rubio. She's currently the president of the IAU Division H on Interstellar Medium and the Local Universe. She has been president of the Chilean Society of Astronomy. She actually went to one of the easiest in Spain when Spain was being a target for the schools. And so she learned how Spain was trying to develop observational astronomy, and could make the comparison on how Chile could just develop that astronomical capability as well. And so she highlights the opportunities to attend the international school that was very important, and how she was able to notice that participating in such international events were key to develop one's career. Clearly a very influential person, both in Chile and worldwide, that took her first international event in our program. I have noticed that Mamta put among her people highlighted for the women in astronomy, Somaya. Somaya is also one of our champions. Somaya Saad, 1994 alumna. She was actually one of the local directors of the ISIA in 2018, and I have been following her career ever since. She basically works in every single aspect of astronomy. Obviously, women in astronomy, but she is the national liaison for the Egyptian IAU membership, and working also in the education committees and in the outreach committees, ex-head of the astronomy department of one of the major institutions in Egypt. And she mentions some of the important messages she received. She said, first, faith and self-confidence. Also, second, how the IAU is important because enhances the goals of equality, diversity, and inclusion, and this can be achieved, and she learned this through the schools. And third, this gave her motivation to work on the youth, and therefore not only develop her career on binary stars, but also to basically push for further education, both in Egypt, in the region, and in the world. And lastly, I will highlight Fateme Tabatabai. She is a younger career person, very recently hired at the prime institution in Iran. This is a photograph of one of the schools in Iran. We have had several. This is Michelle Garbaldi, then the director of the school, with men and women just doing some optical practice. And again, Fateme says, at the time, one could hear of such international events in astronomy in Iran very rarely. Because of that, I was very enthusiastic to use this unique opportunity that gave her basically encouragement to apply for other institutes, and she went to get her PhD in the Max Planck Institute for Radio Astronomy in Bonn, Germany. Afterwards, she was a postdoc in the IAC, in the Instituto de Astrofísica de Canarias, and recently she has returned to Iran to take a full faculty position at, as I said, the IPM, which is the prime institution for research in astronomy in Iran. We have participation not only by researchers. If you just look into the other offices of the IAU, we have four offices which are like siblings of autonomous siblings that work on different aspects. We work with researchers, with the young population of astronomers, but we have the, as you know, the Office of Astronomy for Education, and we have, as you can say, many of our alumni are working in their local committees, in their national committees to promote education through astronomy. We have many as well working for outreach for astronomy. And we have as well many working in development through astronomy. So I would like to just finish with this album of photographs, but that basically reflect what the ISIA is for me. The ISIA is certainly astronomy education. It's also providing avenues for career development. It is also providing a network. They start doing group projects, and then they end up just having close relationships that go into the future. We train them to have better soft skills so that they can develop a career in astronomy, skills that they can bring afterwards into other arenas of work. We provide tutoring and we provide mentoring, and certainly we provide the opportunities to understand that the world is a larger place and that we are diverse and that we have to take care of our cultural differences, and we have to basically nurture our beings as human beings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was absolutely inspiring, and I think congratulations to you for really taking the whole challenge and taking putting all your energy in so much of efforts worldwide and appreciating the cultural difference, which is so important and which I guess many people don't really realize. So any question? We have a couple of minutes for a quick question. Otherwise, we will, of course, request you to please stay back until the end so that people can think of the questions and they can ask you. Okay. All right. So I guess
just if you allow me, Mamta, I will just quickly advertise that we also have a focus meeting within the General Assembly. You are all invited to participate. We will have great invited talks about PhD development, about the challenges in PhD development, both around the world and specifically in developing countries. So we welcome you there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be writing to you for sure. Okay. All right. So we will go ahead with the next speaker because we are now running short of time. So we are very happy today to have Professor Sarah Seja with us. So you can see Sarah is here. She is an astrophysicist and a planetary scientist at the MIT. And her main research goal is to find and identify another Earth. So that's absolutely exciting for everyone. Everyone wants to know about it. She is a well-known international speaker on exoplanet discoveries, especially at the TED Talk, CNN, and BBC. You must have heard her talks, and she's leading and involved with a number of space-based exoplanet searches, including as the Deputy Science Director for the MIT-led NASA mission TESS. She has inspired many new generation students and researchers with her work on exoplanets, and she has been actively supporting women career in research. She has also written several books on exoplanets and received several awards and distinctions for her efforts that she is carrying out. So today we are very happy and lucky to have her with us in this event, and we are looking forward to listen to her career story. So Professor Seja, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Can you all see my screen? I titled my talk, Billions of Stars, Billions of Possibilities. Because, you know, if we're lucky to see a dark sky, we can see thousands of stars. But in our Milky Way galaxy alone, there are 100 billion, hundreds of billions of stars. And we think there are upwards of hundreds of billions of galaxies. I wanted to start out by telling you what I'm working on today, and then I'll backtrack and tell you about how I got here. Well, about 2 years ago, I was part of a team that shook the world of science. We reported the discovery of phosphine gas on the planet Venus, in the Venus atmosphere. I'm curious about how many of you have heard about phosphine on Venus. You could always say yes in the chat or raise your hand or something like that. But the backstory of this, you have heard of this, the backstory goes back billions of years to a time when on our own planet Earth, a very humble bacteria, cyanobacteria, discovered photosynthesis. And in the process generated oxygen gas, which eventually came to fill our atmosphere to 20% by volume. Without plants or bacteria today, we'd have no oxygen in our atmosphere. Yet oxygen is so highly reactive that it shouldn't be there. And so I love to imagine intelligent life on a planet orbiting a star not too far from our sun. And if they're looking back at Earth, you know how they'll be suspicious there's life here. It's not by big things like the Great Wall of China or by pollution or city lights, but it's by gas that doesn't belong. And indeed, one of our dreams in the field of exoplanets, that's my main discipline, is to eventually find a pale blue dot, another Earth, and to look for oxygen and other gases. So back to phosphine, the story actually is from Professor Jane Greaves, the lead, who surprisingly enough, you know how in science we have an opportunity to take huge risks and that kind of sense of adventure and joy and exploration. Well, Professor Jane Greaves, to her credit, decided to search for signs of life on Venus purposely. And what was really hard about what she did was she searched for what kind of gas should she look for. And she searched the literature and she came across some obscure papers talking about phosphine. It's a phosphorus atom with 3 hydrogen atoms. Now on Earth and Venus, we have hardly any hydrogen, right? And the temperatures and pressures don't support phosphine forming thermodynamically. So she's a radio astronomer, and phosphine is something that has a rotational transition at radio wavelengths at 1 millimeter, where she's able to observe. And my team independently, we're working on like computer codes and searching the literature, and we have giant databases of molecules, and we're literally trying to uncover any possible gas that could be a biosignature. So we're prepared for finding signs of life of any kind on an exoplanet. And someone connected our two teams, because my team was also working on phosphine. And the chance of you having heard of phosphine or, astronomers working on phosphine is so low. So we got connected and we worked together. My team helped with the interpretation. So by the way, Venus, we all here are astronomers of one kind or another. And we know that Venus, in fact, is a terrible place for life due to a massive greenhouse atmosphere. The surface temperature means that no life of any kind could survive on the surface. But people have been speculating about life on Venus for over half a century. And just like on Earth, if you climb up a mountain, it gets colder and colder above the surface. So too on Venus. And about 50 kilometers above the surface in the cloud layers, the temperature is not too hot, not too cold, but just right for life. And so that's the idea, that there are some kind of microbes floating around in the Venus atmosphere. On Earth, by the way, we have some microbes in our clouds that live there temporarily. So it's kind of a curious type of, desire to find life elsewhere. And on Venus, it actually gets more and more interesting. But the clouds, you should know, they're very harsh. They're not water droplets like our own Earth clouds. Instead, they're sulfuric acid, and it's not a great place for life. So I want you to know that most of you do know that in 2020, Professor Jane Greaves and team that I'm a part of presented a report of phosphine on Venus. And we had also worked through all the possibilities of what could make phosphine. Don't feel like you need to read this slide in detail, but for example, volcanoes, meteor delivery, lightning, surface minerals. But in fact, none of these, although most of these produce some tiny bit of phosphine, it's not enough to explain the observations. And what you probably do know about phosphine is this discovery was incredibly controversial. And it would be like a whole other talk to walk through the things that most people aren't happy with, but I'll give you two of them. One is that people want to, find an explanation for phosphine on Venus from volcanoes or surface minerals. And so there are a couple of published papers trying to push that. And on the other side, there's also data analysis, because the data from these large observatories is made public. And a number of teams have looked at the data that's public and have not recovered the signal. Some teams do recover the signal, thus contradicting each other, and want to claim that the signal is not from phosphine. So unfortunately, this is just a teaser, because I want to get on to other parts of my talk. But what I wanted you to know, because I feel like most people aren't aware of, is that this is like an ongoing story. And I'm going to I don't have time to walk through this in detail, but I wanted you to know that this it's not just the discovery of phosphine and the reported discovery of phosphine and all the back and forth, but it's kind of ongoing. So I made this giant table, and there's a link if you're interested, I can send it to you, to kind of explain like what's been going on with phosphine. So we have each of these columns and rows is a paper. So we have a discovery paper. And for example, we also show you what our team has been responding to for every paper that comes out saying that phosphine's not there or that it's caused by a volcano. We have like a response paper. It's kind of like a different talk, but I wanted to share with you this like amazing thing we have in astronomy, where we are like an observationally driven science, and we can come across like incredible discoveries that may be controversial, but that's how science works, by going back and forth. And for me personally, it has opened like a whole new area, because I'm working on Venus now. And I spent like 2 years handpicking a team, and we studied what kind of missions could we send to Venus that would be very focused on a search for habitability in life. And our first mission, it's a small privately funded mission. We call it our Rocket Lab mission, because it's spearheaded by Rocket Lab. We have a launch in May 2023. And I just want you to stay tuned for all of that. So now I'm going to back up to how I got started in astronomy. And I'm going to guess that part of my story some of you share. And again, I invite you to raise your hand if this is part of your memories as well. Well, I remember being about 5 years old, and my dad took me to a star party. That's, of course, not where Hollywood stars get together, but it's where astronomers, amateur astronomers, take out their telescopes, and they invite the public to come along. And I remember seeing the moon for the first time through a telescope, and wow, like the craters came to life. I had no idea that that moon that was staring at me from the sky was like a whole other world. And I invite all of you today to, think about people in your life or community who you could invite to look through a telescope at a moon. It's pretty simple, but incredibly powerful. One of my other memories from childhood is of the night sky. And I hope that all of you, I'm kind of going to hope that all astronomers here had a chance to see the truly dark night sky. It's absolutely stunning. I remember I was about 10 years old and on my first camping trip with my dad, and it was his last camping trip as well as his first. And I remember walking out of my tent at night and looking up and seeing those stars for the first time. And those things stayed with me. Now, unlike some of our previous speakers who told us about their journey, I was not like an overly studious person when I was a child and teenager. I didn't pay too much attention in school, except for math and science, because I knew I'd have to build on those. But something amazing happened. When I was 16 years old, I had seen a sign for an open house at the local university, University of Toronto in Canada, where I lived a few blocks away. And I saw a sign for open house. It was university wide, but the astronomy department had an open house. So I actually went to that open house and took an elevator up to like the top floor of the building. And I saw there were professors and students, and I couldn't believe it. You could be an astronomer for a job. And that remains today like one of the top 10 days of my life. But what followed was I went home and told my dad. And he was an incredibly supportive person, but he actually got mad. And I'm going to explain why, but I want to share with you what he told me. And he said, Sarah, you have to be able to get a job and support yourself and not rely on any man. And he wasn't telling me I couldn't do science or I couldn't be a physicist or an astronomer, but he didn't know. He wasn't sure if what an astronomer did or if they could get a job. And on today, International Women's Day, I invite all of you to think about children, girls, and how you could reach out to those who have access to education and skill building and push that message on them. I have an acquaintance today who is part of a wealthy family, like a husband and 2 children. And she's a stay-at-home mom right now. And her husband is manipulative and abusive, and she needs to leave him. But she can't leave him because she has no access to any of the family's money and she has no job. So on International Women's Day, I think it's really important we think about this, that we can encourage, and this is actually a well-educated person, but we need to really push this. So I know all of us here, we were able to get a job, we're able to live our dreams in astronomy. And I think that's really, really important. So I did study, I did become an astronomer despite my dad's wishes. And I was an undergraduate in the early 1990s. I got to work in an observatory for my summer job, which was awesome. I studied variable stars. And in the mid 1990s, I went to graduate school. I actually was at Harvard Astronomy Department. I started in 1994 right on the spot. This is showing you cumulative number of detections, so from 0 to thousands. And this is discovery year. And it's showing you a bar chart of the number of exoplanets we know about. And so what you can see here is, I think most people know there are just thousands of exoplanets out there. But back when I started, back in the mid 1990s, I was working as a grad student, and I had completed what's like a master's project in cosmology, recombination in the early universe. And I was looking around for a thesis topic. And my advisor at the time, actually, what happened was in 1995, the first exoplanet orbiting a sun-like star, 51 Peg B, was announced. And for anyone who was actually around back then, you'll know that it was very head scratching, very puzzling, because people had been searching for a solar system like our own, with a Jupiter-sized planet, 5 astronomical units from its star. Instead, the team had found 51 Peg B, what's now called a hot Jupiter. Instead of being 5 astronomical units, it was 0.05. So 100 times closer to its star than Jupiter is to our sun, and nearly 10 times closer to its star than Mercury is to our sun. But nonetheless, after that 1995, others checked their data and found more of the same. And in the summer of 1996, my thesis advisor, Dimitar Saswab at Harvard, suggested, why don't you work on these new planets? And I actually decided to work on them. Now that might sound like, okay, great. But at the time it was very controversial. People were just like phosphine on Venus, you know, the community was like up in arms and people weren't happy with this, which, you know, when you find something unexpected and, you know, it takes a long time to get accepted by the community. And so I worked on it anyway, despite people saying they probably weren't planets, shouldn't do this, will never be, why study their atmospheres, we'll never be able to observe those. But I did stick with it. And, you know, there's more to that story, but I had so far like an incredible journey on this topic. I got to, because at the time there were very few people working in exoplanets, like a conference in the late 1990s might have 30 people. No one at the conference would have white or gray hair. You know, there would be equal numbers of men and women. It was just very young and very free, really. But the outside world had a lot of skepticism, but that did leave room. And so I was able to do a lot of new things, lay the foundation for a lot of parts of exoplanet atmospheres. And probably my proudest achievement was before the first transient exoplanet was even discovered, I worked on transit transmission spectra. And I was able to sort of write down and show people what actually became the main way we found exoplanet. We study exoplanet atmospheres today. So looking back, by the time I moved to MIT and became a professor, I really had it all. Honestly, I'm not bragging here. I'm setting up the next part of my story. I had like a great job. I was like tenured at a very young age. I had a wonderful husband, my dream home. I had 2 small children, 2 boys. They're actually age 16 and 18 today. And yeah, it was a great life. Perfect. And my husband at the time, he got a stomach ache that kept getting worse. And it was like a very bad downward spiral because at every junction, I'm sure you've had illness in your family, but at every junction, it was like the worst possible outcome. Like you could have had nothing. But it turned out he got a complete intestinal blockage, had to go to the hospital, eventually was diagnosed with cancer. I think you might see where this is going. And he ended up not surviving this actually. So I found myself, despite this wonderful career and great life, I had very good work-life balance. I was like a widow at age 40 with 2 small children. And my husband had only worked part-time to help support my career. So I was having to discover like the plight of the working mom, like from scratch. I hadn't really been fully aware. So it was kind of, I don't want to go into details about how depressing it was. I think we've all experienced grief and sadness, either ourselves or close friends during the pandemic. But I was kind of all alone, I felt anyway at the time. But some like amazing things happened actually. This was a long time ago, so don't worry. This was like over 10 years ago now. Was my students and postdocs became extended family friends. I had this tight group. This is Vlada. He now heads up a big division at Blue Origin. This is Mary Knapp. She now is a staff member at MIT Haystack Radio Observatory. We're in New Mexico testing out what becomes a satellite, a CubeSat called Asteria that orbited Earth and successfully operated for 2 years. Funnily enough, I had to do something else, and here were my kids. This is a long time ago. They thought this was like a family, and Mary was like 20 years old or something, but it was really cute. We had other friends, postdocs, like we would go to conferences and I'd bring the kids along, and then we would do a vacation like with the team. Here we are in Switzerland. We went to Sequoia, this park with these giant trees. Look, there's the kids, huge trees. And my life started to flourish in ways I hadn't imagined. We went to Italy, and Mary and I and another, we taught in like this, we did like a week-long workshop for Torino. And yeah, other amazing thing happens too. I couldn't put their picture here because it's not like for public consumption, but I met this incredible group of women in my hometown, all widows, all around the age of 40 to 45, all with kids. I got a best friend out of it, Melissa, who actually, I started taking her around. See how happy and pretty she is? she's the best person to bring the +1. I still had to go to events. It was very uncomfortable. I would bring her as my date, and she was the perfect date because people would, you know, I was like kind of shy, and I'm always quite introverted, and I was pretty depressed back then. But she'd say, "Hi, what do you work on?" And someone would like say the most boring thing ever, and she'd be like, "Wow, that's great." So she was the perfect person to bring along, and I started taking her. I took her on a tour. I took her to a lot of events, and at some point we went to California, and I got to give her a tour of the Jet Propulsion Lab. Here we are pretending to be running the Mars rover. Here we are. This is the Mars yard where they test out Mars rovers, and like they can test out the wheels that got damaged on Mars and kind of try to troubleshoot what's going on. And through all of this, I really had an incredible journey. I was able to kind of like put things in perspective. Those things where, you know, you have to try to figure out what really matters in terms of both your family and science. And I know my story's a bit jumbled here, but I just want to share this really cute thing that Melissa said, because it's kind of heartwarming and inspiring at the same time. And what she told me was, after getting to know a bit about astronomy and the search for another Earth, she finally said, "You know, Sarah, I think it's like really hard to find another Earth." And by the way, at the same time, like the widows, some of them like started dating again. And that's kind of tricky, you know, when you're older and you have a lot of baggage and the kids and like the depression and everything. And so she's like, you know, I think it might be harder to find, let me think for a second. She's like, you know, I think it might be harder to find true love than it is to find another Earth. And you know how hard it is to find another Earth? Nearly impossible. So she's trying to say it's nearly impossible to find true love. But then an amazing thing happened. I went to an amateur astronomy conference where I was the keynote speaker. And when I arrived, I got to the reception. I'm not making this up. It was just like the movies. I looked across the room and I saw this tall, dark, handsome man. And I was like, wow, who is that person? I have to meet him. And so long story short, after some time, I met an amateur astronomer, we fell in love and we got married. And so now I always think like, you know I'm going to find that other Earth because I found true love. And Melissa said that one was harder. So if I did the harder thing, surely I can do that easier thing of finding another Earth. So before I wrap up, I just want to share one more topic. I've been working hard to help women overcome the imposter syndrome. And I really think it's one of the major things, the lack of confidence in women, holding us back from really kind of reaching that potential and the critical mass. And I've spent about 2 years, I'm kind of selling here, but I've developed this program. I'm trying to scale it up eventually using conversational AI. But if you are interested and want to hear more about this, please sign up. I'll put this in the chat after my talk. But basically, I've developed like a 6-week pilot program where you find like 2 to 4 friends. And it's some tools that I didn't invent the tools, but I've kind of repackaged them. I'm very passionate about this, and I'm very, very like serious about changing the game for women all around the world. So I want to thank you for your attention. I have a book. It's translated into a bunch of languages if you'd like to read more about my story. And I want to thank you for your attention and for coming to my talk today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was absolutely inspiring and full of energy, actually. I'm sure we have all got excited and everyone's going to write you something or the other, I'm sure about it. But thank you very much for sharing your personal life journey as well. I just have a very quick question, and that is, according to you, finally, with all the experience that you have shared and the people with whom you have interacted, what is important for you? Is it career or is it family?
Well, it's both actually. And I've been so driven in my career, and that like, you know, it's kind of the thrill of discovery and the journey of the unknown that really motivates me actually. And so, you know, I'd say earlier in my career, I had to really force myself, this sounds bad, but I'm just going to be honest. I had to force myself to focus on my family. And my husband now, he's so funny. Someday you'll meet him, because he and I, once things get back, you know, we travel together, and he's so funny. He always calls himself, he says, I'm number 10,003, like in all my priorities, including my cat who's no longer alive, or the dog, you know. So I have to always, sometimes I do have to make a conscious effort, but through time too, I do, you know, some of the really important advice I got early on was, when you're at work, focus on work. When you're with family, focus on your family. And so I think that's kind of what I would maybe share with you, but I've been able to do both by trying to be strategic with how I use my time and what I work on and where I give my time to.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Right. If not, then I think we'll thank you.
Could you put up the link? Sorry, could you put up the link for the?
I did. And this link, it's really just a questionnaire for you to sign up. And if you want to try the program out, then it's like a free pilot program because I'm learning from you as well as you learning from me. And I would be thrilled for you to participate.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Sejer, and thank you very much for your time and for this wonderful presentation. I'm sure we will be in contact with you again. Right, so we'll go further with the next talk. And the last speaker of this session, which is a wonderful session that we're having today, and that's Dr. Sthabile Kolwa. She is the Executive Director of American Meteorological Society in Boston and has led as the Executive Director of the American Association of Variable Star Observers, a non-profit worldwide scientific and educational organization of amateur and professional astronomers. She did her basic education in Greece, and all along she has been doing her postdoctorate and further studies in the US. She has been conducting mentorship programs for undergraduates and aspires to create inclusive communities of science-savvy citizens and works towards improving society for all. She has a wealth of invaluable expertise, and she's a very humble and a kind lady. With our own experience, we can say that. And she's going to share with us her personal career journey and views on career in science. So, yeah, Stella.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, yes.
Sarah's presentation is so inspiring. It's a very hard act to follow. Today, I would like to actually share my story and my journey as requested, but and it's actually a privilege to celebrate with you the International Women's Day this year, especially in particular as I start my tenure at the American Meteorological Society. And thank you so much for inviting me to share. I would like to actually take a small step back and recognize the theme of this year, which is break the bias, and call us all to imagine a world that is free of stereotypes and discrimination, a world that is diverse, equitable, inclusive, where women and girls have equal opportunities in education, employment, society, and life. Gender equality in our society is vital for the progress of humanity, and especially in sciences, we recognize and we celebrate the rightful role of women as innovators, role models, and change agents. Today's theme is not just that, not just a reminder of that, but also a call to action for accelerating women's equality and an opportunity for each one of us to reflect how we can help women all over the world to reach their goals and get recognition and equality. With that, I'm reminded of Newton's popular quote, right? If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And when it comes to science, we need to recognize that, historically, there are not many women, or we don't have much information about women in science, although we do have indications that the contribution was substantial. Only later in human history, we see and recognize the names of those who, especially over the last 150 years, contributed significantly to science and technology the way we know it right now. And there are many, many women whose work has influenced ours. Their stories have inspired us, and here some that you probably know: Vera Rubin, Nancy Grace Roman, Jill Tarter, Jocelyn Bell Brunel, but also there are lots of other individuals, whose names we might not know, but who have contributed very significantly to at least who I am and what I am doing right now. With that, to the point, a quick introduction. I grew up in a big city. I was born and raised in Athens, Greece. And Athens is a beautiful place to be. This is actually a picture of Athens as it is right now. This is my home country. It is also a very light polluted place. So I could not see the night sky growing up, or I could see a very biased version of the night sky, with just a couple of stars, perhaps visible. Then we could see the moon. So I was not exactly the astronomer or the person who grew up with a lot of exposure in astronomy. I was always a very curious individual, though. I always wanted to know how the world works. So it was always that annoying creature that was making experiments in my kitchen and breaking things at home just to actually put them together afterwards and see how they work and how they function, which can actually be very dangerous when you live in an apartment. You can actually put the whole world, the whole apartment complex on fire. But also a big city provides lots of opportunities. So I had very supportive parents growing up who tolerated all my exploration at home and also gave me opportunities to be myself. I was protected, somehow I was protected from stereotypes. So when I decided to go to the university, I wanted to study, and I wanted to study physics. My parents were right there, right next to me. And so I went to the University of Athens, my hometown, at the physics department, when I got a bachelor's in physics. Now, I knew I didn't want to just get a bachelor's, I wanted to continue my studies. And I remember going to one of my male professors at the University of Athens and telling him, I would like to explore astronomy. I would like to see whether astronomy is a good career for me. And what he told me is that, something, you will never find a job as an astronomer. So you should not be doing it. You're a woman, actually. So you shouldn't be doing that. And this is where personal attributes matter. I was extremely stubborn. I was like, you're not going to tell me what I can or cannot do. So I found a different professor to be a mentor, an amazing woman whose name is Mary Contizas. And pretty much what she told me is that you can do whatever you want, but think about it very carefully, because once you make a choice, there's no turning back. And no offense to her, actually, we have many choices in life, as I'm going to demonstrate later. But with that in mind, I actually decided to come to the US for my graduate studies. I went to Indiana University on purpose. I wanted to work with a specific individual who was working on variable stars at the time. And I got my master's and PhD in astronomy with a double minor in physics and geophysical sciences. As a graduate student, I had also the opportunity to teach my own course in astronomy. So I was an associate instructor. And at the same time, the astronomy department at Indiana University started what we call here in the United States research experiences for undergraduates, a program that is funded by the National Science Foundation, and it's bringing students in the summer, undergraduate students in the summer, within departments all over the country to do a research project. So I was actually fortunate to be part of the program, the RAU program at IAU at Indiana University, right when it started. And my thesis advisor really did encourage me to be involved with student mentoring, even have my own little team of students to do research, which I really, really enjoyed. So I graduated around 2005. And from there on, I found an opportunity at the Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory as a fellow. So I got a fellowship there, but also as the site director of the research experiences for undergraduate program there. So I spent 3 years in Chile, in La Serena, Chile, mentoring students from the United States, coming to the observatory to do research projects. And I was doing my own research by myself. But this was the first time where I was actually responsible for a full program. And I had to work not only on my own research, but also with researchers around the observatory who were mentoring students, with the students themselves, make sure that the educational activities of the program were such that it would satisfy the requirements that we had, even organize something, a 10 weeks program by myself, and even look for funding, which I really enjoyed. It was something that helped me feel not only empowered, but also that I was offering something good, not only to the local community, but also to students who wouldn't have opportunities to have research experiences at the time. From there, this was a fellowship, so it ended 3 years later, and I had my one postdoc position at the Spitzer Science Center at Caltech. And completely different experience. I was working with satellite data. I was there at the time where Spitzer ran out of cryogen, so a little bit of a heartbreaking experience there because, well, we didn't have time to observe my own favorite stars. And from there, I found myself in the job market in 2008. And for those who remember, 2008 is when the stock market crashed. We had a worldwide economic crisis. This is not the best time to be in the job market. This was not the best time to actually look for a job. So at that point, I had to reinvent myself in a sense. I started looking at my research, what I can and cannot do, what I should and should not, what I feel comfortable doing, and how much do I want to push my limits a little bit, and what is funded at the time. And I ended up getting a NASA Astrobiology Institute fellowship to study magnetic activity on single stars and the effects of this activity on habitable zones. Right now, this kind of research is being conducted very frequently. I mean, we are looking at how active a star is before we explore whether the planet that is around it is habitable or can host life. But back then, people were not thinking that way when it was coming to characterize exoplanets and their environment. So I got that fellowship at the Carnegie. I took that fellowship at the Carnegie Institution of Washington. I spent 3 years in Washington, D.C. And then again, once money runs out, you have to start thinking about what you want to do, about options. And I realized that I did not want to go to academia. In as much as I loved working with students, I did not want to get in a classroom, not at that point in my career. I wanted to do something else. And you know, when you say it in retrospect, you know, I want to do something else and here's the opportunity, things sound very easy and very easy to be placed together. But at that time, I didn't even know what that something else looked like. So I started thinking about my skill set. I started thinking about what I can or cannot do. And I started looking completely outside the box. And at the same time, a position at the American Institute of Physics publishing group opened. So I applied for it and I was hired there to work on scientific journals. This was something I had never thought about before. And actually, I was not even working on astronomy journals. I was working on physics journals. I had the opportunity to help launch a gold open access journal on material sciences, get involved with the wider scientific community, a very active and very passionate scientific community that is actually improving materials for anything that you can imagine, from glass on your windows to material that makes your car to material that gets in your body as prosthetics, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a learning experience for me as well, in terms of broadening my horizons, my scientific horizons. At the same time, a position opened at the American Association of Variable Star Observers. They were looking for an executive director. And they were looking for a very specific type of personality at the time. They were looking for a person who has a scientific background of variable stars, the person who's actually working on variable stars if possible, but someone who also had management experience, who knew how to work on a project, who knew how to put a project together, who knew how to work with individuals who are not necessarily astronomers. And for me, my publishing experience at the American Institute of Physics and my director's experience at CTIO actually made me qualify for that position. So I moved here in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 2015. I was the executive director and CEO of the American Association of Variable Star Observers, 7 glorious years. And from there, I just started a new position at the American Meteorological Society, and I'll get back to that in a minute. So just taking a step back and taking a look at my career, it pretty much feels like this. This is where Greece is, Athens, Greece, where I came from. From there, I went in the middle of the United States in Indiana. From there, I actually went all the way down to Chile. From Chile, back to California. From California, here's California in the United States, across the country to Washington, D.C. From Washington, D.C., a little bit further up to Long Island, outside New York City, for the American Institute of Physics position, and then here, Cambridge, Massachusetts. So it felt that I was on the go nonstop. It really did feel like that. And and I have to tell you, at some point, you feel very tired of moving every 2 or 3 years. So I had decided that, you know, I'm going to stay on this side of the world for a little while. And I was really fortunate to be able to do that. My research is on semi-detached binary star systems, novae. Things that explode, things that consume, cannibalize their companions. I was always interested in those little donor star in cataclysmic variables, the little abused star, activity on it, phenomena on it, and how it affects mass transfer. So that's a little bit about my research, but astronomy actually provided more opportunities than just sitting in front of a computer.
Where you go towards this month, it won't be more than that amount.
Is that what?
Your boss pass.
Hello?
No matter where you go, it won't be more than that amount.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah.
So I did have the opportunity to see the night sky. I did have the opportunity to enjoy the Milky Way galaxy from Chile, observe in some of the most amazing places on the planet. And here's me after a long night of observing, and me right next to one of the instruments I used. Actually, this is at ISO, I think, in one of the 8-meter telescopes. And from there on, that brought me to where I am right now, working with students. I still mentor students, work a lot with my board, my council, to actually come up with strategic decisions. I spend a lot of time from my computer. I still give presentations, but also combine this with fun. I did see the solar eclipse in 2017. I went there with some of my friends. And actually, I was very fortunate. Sarah Seeger and I were together actually when we saw the launch of the test satellite, which was really exciting. And, you know, trips here and there. So the bottom line is, you know, if you're enjoying what you're doing, despite challenges and everything else that life throws at you, it's not considered to be work. So for me, life and work for a long part of my career were blended. And for me, again, no regrets. At the same time, there are really big issues that plague our planet. There are really big issues that threat our livelihoods. Since the 70s, we knew that climate change is real. We knew that anthropogenic climate change was going to actually come and haunt us, and we didn't do anything. Or at least we didn't really take it seriously, up to the point where right now, well, the reality is that at this point, my generation and probably yours and definitely the next generations are dealing with a crisis that is going to affect everything that we know and everything that we has to do with our quality of life. So at some point, when I got the opportunity to join the American Meteorological Society, which is an organization that is promoting the science that has to do with climate change, make sure that based on that science, we come up with solutions. I actually made that leap from the AAVSO to the AMS. The AMS's mission is to advance atmospheric and related sciences, technologies, applications, and services for the benefit of society. And it is dealing with issues that are urgent, such as, again, climate change, erratic weather patterns, water and lack of water sanitation, it's amazing how we live in the 21st century and we haven't even solved basic human needs in our society. So through the AMS, I'm hoping to at least do something, make some impact on this planet, do something good for the planet and keep the people safe. So through this journey, it was definitely not linear. I had to reinvent myself. And not only that, I had to redefine what I wanted to do in my career. And outside academia, there are very few permanent positions in astronomy. You can think about the governments, you can work for the government institution, but the bottom line is that if you are on soft money, you need to actually be flexible, and you need to be flexible to move, and you need to be flexible to sometimes work part-time and also think outside the box. So for me, I had to actually take stock of everything that I did in my life many, many times and see how I could rebrand it, how I could actually explain to individuals that my degree did not mean that I can only work in astronomy. Through research, I knew how to design projects, how to manage projects. I showcased leadership, team building and work, data acquisition, reduction, data analysis, and good time management, actually, to complete a project. Data publication and presentation is something that we all do in astronomy, in science. But what we don't think about it is that this is a way for us to market our work. It's in principle, it's marketing. We're presenting something in a way that makes it appealing to everybody else. Teaching is extremely important. And actually, this is a way for us to communicate complex issues to individuals who don't necessarily have the background and help them understand how nature works. Management is a very fancy word of organizing people. When you have your own research team, when you're working with your collaborators, when you work on your project, that's exactly what you do. You do management. And actually, if you can be exposed to individuals from different backgrounds, give presentations in front of diverse audiences, that is pretty much building up your resume a little bit more than only working within your own team. And also volunteering. For me, for all of us in science, we participate in committees, we review papers, we review proposals, but we also have opportunities to offer something in our local communities, help individuals with their needs, and get more involved in the day-to-day of our own society. It was very interesting. I was listening to Helen Mason earlier today, and I was smiling because pretty much what you're going to see on this slide is exactly more or less what she said. For me, coming up with a definite goal for my life was not a linear process. I always wanted to be an explorer, and I always wanted to do something different, something that makes me useful. So at some point, I did have to take a step back and figure out what I'm passionate about and actually include it in the big picture, how my work and life would align with this goal. So for me, as a goal, a life goal, is to enable and empower women and girls in STEM to be their best self, to actually bloom, do whatever you want, but actually be yourself. I was always open to opportunities, and I was focusing on my skills, but also looking outside the box. It takes sometimes trial and error, even a position, a job that is not exactly on our radar, or we don't consider to be within our skills, might actually prove itself to be a great opportunity, a very unique experience, and it can lead to something much better. For me, my mentors and my network has been extremely important to me. Your peers, your friends, your teachers, individuals who can actually give you guidance, but also listen. for good and bad times, provide perspective, provide an outsider opinion. It's very, very important to have cheerleaders in your life. And actually my cheerleader, my biggest cheerleader is my father. So both women and men who can support you and who can actually give you advice can be your mentor, can be your network, should be your network. We can't live our life by ourselves. We are social creatures and we really need others to support us. And for me, it's really very important to give back to our society, make an impact, do something good for the planet, leave some kind of a legacy. And I want to feel that, you know, my superpower is that every day I get to make the world a little bit better through both my work and my life. So, you know, we're all inspired by something. And for me, this was a moment where I was really, inspired to take that step back. I'm pretty sure you all recognize this. This is the pale blue dot picture of planet Earth. The first time that it was acquired by Voyager 1. It was about 30 years ago. This is Cassini's version from 2013 with Saturn at in the foreground. And both times it was inspired by Carl Sagan's 1994 book entitled Pale Blue Dot, A Vision of the Human Future in Space, where he writes, look again at that dot. That's here, that's us. And he goes on to describe Earth as a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. It sums up perfectly the profound perspective that we gain as astronomers from the exploration of space. And it confronts us with a very powerful recognition of who we are and where we belong in the universe. This picture is relevant today, and actually it's more relevant today than it's ever been with everything that's happening in the world. You know, you can ask Sarah, she will tell you the next nearest possible habitable planet outside our solar system is at least 25 trillion miles away. Then it's nowhere 2.0. So we really need to take care of this one. So with that, I am going to end my presentation by leaving you with my contact information. I am on social media. Check out what we do at the AMS and join us. And I will stop sharing my screen and ask if there are any questions for me. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Stella. That was really inspiring and really great to hear your talk and the values and the views that you have. Do we have questions? Yes, we have one question coming from Lucero. Yes, Lucero, please.
Sorry, I don't know about the, now it's working the camera. Hi, Stella, very nice talk. It was very interesting for me to learn that you are from Greece. I did one of my postdoc positions in Athens, and I couldn't recognize your accent at the beginning. But I would like to ask you, how do you manage to carry out such different jobs during your life career till now, and in such a good way? I mean, have these skills for different type of jobs, and now going back to do science again in a very high level. So I don't know.
Ooh, again, when you're in the middle of things, you feel you're in a crisis, right? I had to actually sit down and take my resume and translate it in terms of skill sets, write down what I can and cannot do, what I am doing that is, it seems that it's, you know, normal, right, for us as scientists, but based on that, how that can be used in different environments. So for example, when I applied for the American Institute of Physics job, which is like, it's a publishing job in a physics environment, right? And I'm an astronomer. So what do I know about publishing? It's a management position, right? So I sat down and I wrote, okay, so what do I know about publishing? Well, I have been an author. I wrote papers. I have been a reviewer. I reviewed papers. I know more or less what the scientific process looks like, how a scientist thinks from the beginning of the project and how important it is for scientists to publish their manuscript. I'm a scientist. I can talk science. I can talk shop. And, you know, basically, as a physicist, I can get the basics of any scientific, I have the background to understand any scientific discipline to a point, right? And at the same time, I'm a disciplined individual. I can manage a group of individuals, et cetera, based on my previous experience. So this is how I presented that particular position to the hiring team at the American Institute of Physics and said, okay, sure, we'll give you a chance. And from there on, just be open-minded. AIP, that particular job was not ideal for me, but I was at the point where I really needed something, right? I could not just stay unemployed. But I learned so much that actually provided itself to be extremely useful for the next step in my career, right? I learned how to put budgets, I learned how to work with operations, I learned how to work with individuals who actually don't have any interest in the job, but they have a job, 9 to 5. It's great, it's fantastic. They're very diligent, but they have a life outside a job. Up to that point, my work was my life, and that was not a good thing. So I learned actually how to have a life, believe it or not, through that experience. So I hope that this is helping you. It's and another thing is that if you are looking for a job and you don't really know what's around, just go to any job boards, Indeed, for example, and explore. Write down science. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's for you, but just to give you an idea of what is out there. Maybe something will trigger your interest. Maybe something will actually make you interested in out there. I hope this helps.
Okay, thanks for the advice. I think, well, sometimes we are always looking for the perfect job, or that is balanced with our lives and with our desires and interests.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Very nice meeting you too.
Right. Any further questions? Okay. All right. So I would like to thank Stella again. And I think it was really interesting to have another point of view of looking at jobs. Exactly as you say, you have to explore, you have to be flexible, you have to sometimes change your interest and define your interest based upon whatever is available and whatever you can do. And you should be also willing to change your locations. As you have seen yourself, you have traveled all the way along from Greece to South America and now in Boston. So yes, things have been different and difficult for you, but you have accepted the challenges, and that's the point. Right. Okay. There are no further questions. Then I would just like to request you all to perhaps switch on your cameras, and we'll take one snapshot of this event, and we will finish the session today with this. Yes, great. Very nice to see everyone. Right, we're just waiting for a few more members. Yes, great. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll take a quick snap. Perfect. So thank you very much, and looking forward to see you people again, perhaps in our next sessions, or maybe during the IAU General Assembly meeting. And do let us know if you want to collaborate on any point with us. We are very happy to welcome you all, and we are very happy and looking forward to increase our working group activities and to collaborate with everyone whomsoever is interested. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice International Women's Day celebration.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you a lot.
Bye.